If a parent were watching this now, who was literally in the first days of grief and planning, and suddenly they're doing something that's unspeakable and unthinkable, they're going to be burying their child in 2 days or a day. What considerations for true healing and for participating would you invite them to have? What considerations?
Well, I would say, first of all, not to judge any of the feelings they're having. Not to say, you know, I shouldn't feel this. There's no way to set any kind of standard or rules about the kind of feelings that are going to arise, anywhere from hysterical crying to hysterical laughter, and all in between. Numbness, feeling you're not even alive, feeling you're stumbling around in an alien universe. All of those feelings are completely understandable and natural. And so in the context of that, then I would say, do what you can not to isolate yourself, to really open yourself to receiving love from those around you who love you. And I would say to the people who are family and friends who often say, well, I didn't know what to say, you know, often there's nothing to say. Just the presence, just opening their arms and their heart, offering a hand to hold or a shoulder to cry on. Those are the things that are really meaningful. And then finally, to look at the magnificence of what this child brought into your life and talk about that and demonstrate it in the context of the funeral or the memorial service. You know, to really, we used to have this strange idea that the best thing would be to turn off our memories. And I've always felt the best thing to do is to turn on our memories, to really experience them, to really see what is the unique and special and precious gift that this child gave to his or her mother, to their father, to the family, to the community at large, even if it was a very short life. You know, another thing that we do in this culture is we measure the value of life in terms of the length of life. And the truth of the matter is, I've seen many children who have died before the age of 12, who have lived much more fully and given much more love to the world than some people who live to be 90 and 100.
Yes.
So I think that you have to stop measuring it in terms of length of time.
Yes. Yes.
Just really participate in the memorialization, the memory, the remembering and honoring, the celebration of the life.
Beautifully said. What of the emptiness in your book, Awakenings from Grief? What about the emptiness, the great emptiness? Could you speak to that? Because I know there are people watching that are saying, I'm empty inside.
Yeah.
I'm in this choiceless place of emptiness. My heart, it feels like my heart has just been ripped out.
Sure.
And I'm experiencing an emptiness that I don't know what this is or what to begin to do. There's no future, there's no past.
It's terrifying.
I'm dangling in this moment of agony.
Yeah.
It's terrifying.
It's terrifying. And it's so terrifying that the terror creates even more numbness, because the mind keeps saying, this is more than I can handle. So one thing I would say is that to understand that that emptiness, that numbness, is in some sense your own emotional healing process at work, in the sense that, the same sense that your body literally goes into something we call shock when you experience a tremendous physical trauma. And that is a process that sort of shuts down the body to preserve the inherent energy so that the body can hopefully heal and survive. In the same sense, that's really what happens in the emptiness and the numbness, that we're really endeavoring to conserve our energy and to approach this thing that is so unimaginable, to approach it in increments, small increments. So don't bite off more than you can chew. On the other hand, there's always an on the other hand with grief, you know.
Yes.
On the other hand, I think that what keeps people stuck in the long term is the fear of the feelings, that sense that this is too much to experience. If I allow myself to experience what I'm really feeling, I'll drown in it. Yes. I'll never come back. I'll be suicidal, or I'll just die.
Or I'll be judged as weak or broken and discarded.
Yeah, because we all know that, or you and I know, and the people who are grieving in this moment are learning on the job, unfortunately, that very often our deepest, most difficult feelings are almost impossible for the average person to deal with. So your family and friends stay away because, not because they don't love you, but because they're afraid of saying something that's going to make things worse. And then you do feel judged, because then there are those people who say, oh, come on, get on with it. You know, you got to get back to living. You've got to, you know, you cannot push these feelings aside prematurely. You absolutely can't. But you also can't get through them without feeling them fully. That's the other side.
Yes. If a person is sitting there, they might be a couple of days out, or a couple of months, or even a couple of years out. It doesn't make a difference. What would you say to them? You know, as human beings, we're prepared, we're wired a certain way. We all have certain skills, certain coping abilities. How does one begin to cultivate, and you talked a lot about controlling our own minds or a sense of overwhelm. What are some of the ways, including meditation, that we can begin to cultivate a sense of peace again, or a way of giving our mind, once we're out of shock, a way of giving our mind periods of rest or healing?
Sure. Well, I think, and I say this as a meditation teacher, I've been meditating for 40 years, so but I think that it would be a very difficult practice to embark on in the midst of a profound grief. What I really like to recommend to people, that surprisingly enough a lot of people don't think of, is to get out into nature, to be alone in nature, to go and sit by the ocean and just listen to the rhythms of the waves and the sounds of the birds chirping, or be out in the mountains or in a forest or somewhere where you really tune to the rhythms and pulses and sounds of nature, because those in and of themselves, if you really listen, will help to guide you to a state of inner peace. They're just designed to do that. And a lot of our problem in this culture is we've so lost our connection with nature. And we need to get that back, because nature is so reassuring. You know, I remember a lot of people make fun of tree huggers. You know, it's a term of derision. But years ago, I was going through a very dark period. And a dear friend of mine said to me, John, you know what you need to do? And I said, what? She said, go out and hug a tree. I said, hug a tree? Are you crazy? And I sort of responded to it that way, and I thought, oh, that's a bunch of nonsense. But a few months later, I was up in Big Sur in the redwood forest. And I was walking through the forest, and there was a redwood tree that I found particularly alluring. And I couldn't resist. I remembered my friend's comment, and I just went up and I wrapped my arms around this living being that's been alive maybe 2,000 years. And it's going to die someday. Even though it's 2,000 years old, someday it will die. But in that moment, that connection with the earth and with nature, I like to, in the morning, meditate outdoors, weather permitting. I live in New Jersey, so it's not always permitting. But when it is, to feel the caress of the breeze on our face. And just those sounds that I spoke about, the sounds of nature. So often we go out in nature and we're engaged in a conversation, or we've got the iPod with things in our ears. So I watch people walking on the beach with all of this beautiful natural sound, and they're listening to music or something, which nothing wrong with music, but learn to listen to the music of nature.
Yes, beautifully said.